Hi guys, new topic, Oko, and I promise not all of these will be about food. Okonomiyaki. Just FYI, the sources on this are a bit rubbish. There are plenty of recipes, but barely anything in English about the history, so there's gonna be a lot of Wikipedia in this. Because Google Translate doesn't work on PDF. I assume. I haven't checked. Anywho! Okonomiyaki is a Japanese dish made from wheat flour-based dough, cabbage, and a wide host of other possible ingredients, topped with sauce. Think pancakes with ambitions to become a salad, but like a kick-ass salad. Cooked and with meat and sauce. Maybe this wasn't the best metaphor. I'm sorry. Right, back on track. Okonomiyaki are this. And they're delicious. One of the first foods I sought out when I came to Japan, in fact. It's also a form of teppanyaki, which just means it's cooked on a hot plate instead of a frying pan. I have my own recipe too. Might make a video about that, I don't know. Like most foods, there are innumerable local variations of okonomiyaki, with every restaurant and every household having its own little differences. But there are two schools of two dojos, fighting over okonomiyaki supremacy. There's a Kansai style, which mixes all the ingredients with the dough, making a thick, unified, crisp batter. This method of cooking makes a thick sort of vegetable cake, which gives the whole thing a more consistency. It also makes for smoother cooking, with the heat dissipating more or less evenly through the okonomiyaki. Subsequently, the food gets a softer, silkier quality. The rival dojo uses Hiroshima style, which is, who would have thunk it, most popular in the Hiroshima region. This style is layered with a pancake at the bottom, then cabbage, sprouts, meats, noodles, and eggs. There's a lot more air between the ingredients, which results in an entirely different consistency. And the layering leaves the okonomiyaki a quite tall tower which gradually cooks down. That's why the ingredients that take longer to cook and the meats are placed on the outside, where they get more heat for longer. But with okonomiyaki being made from wheat flour, which is considered many things but not a traditional Japanese ingredient, you may well ask where it came from and how come there are two different styles in the first place. Short answer, we don't know where it came from. See, while wheat had been cultivated in Japan since the Yayoi period at least, so for some 2,300 years, having arrived 700 years after rice did, the wheat was smaller and more robust than what we know today. The smallest in the world in fact. Compared to rice farming, complicated irrigation systems for which had already developed at the time, wheat never got the attention it did in the West. Flour, if it existed at all, didn't gain widespread popularity for centuries. Now, if you're anything like me, you may ask yourself what the hell these people did with wheat if they didn't use it for flour. They boiled or grilled it whole, obviously. In the Nara period, a few wheat flour recipes were developed. Confectionaries fried in oil for nobles, and not available for the average person. Eventually, the Edo period rolled around, and flour-based foods became more accessible as recipes from Korea and China arrived, increasing demand in, and subsequently production of, wheat and flour, most popular being noodles and dumplings. Now, there is some speculation as to which recipe exactly okonomiyaki developed from. The immediate predecessor is likely to be dondonyaki, a smaller takeaway food that was aimed primarily at children, which is a pancake with different toppings wrapped around a stick and probably developed into Hiroshima style, as more and more ingredients were added and they became too big to stick. Or it might be monjayaki, which is made from a very liquidy dough, with ingredients mixed in, which is then cooked on a hot plate where it keeps its gooey consistency throughout cooking. With a thicker dough, it's easy to see this develop into the modern Kansai style okonomiyaki, but where these two came from is less certain. One possible ancestor is funuyaki, a sweet, small, pancakey dessert wrapped around miso. Or it might be senbin, which is, as far as I can tell, a savory pancake, about as thick as a regular breakfast pancake. The rollable ones, not those thick monstrosities they make in America, because of course they do, with a few more ingredients tossed and fried in the batter. In 1931, the beginning of the Showa period, okonomiyaki had already been popular enough to have dozens of food stores in Tokyo alone, which we know by the way, because the first written evidence of okonomiyaki are writings about a sex scandal in the back of an okonomiyaki shop. With Tokyo as usual being the center of things, the food spreads, arriving in Osaka by 1937 and generally gaining popularity around Japan. There was a dip in demand during the war, probably because it was still considered a Western food, but after the war it really got going. Apparently, despite rationing, black markets had little issue in acquiring flour which was being provided by the occupying American forces at the time. Until then, the standard vegetable had been leeks and spring onions, but with food shortages, the more robust cabbage became the new base ingredient. Spring onions remain popular to this day. the demand grew tremendously, so that by 1948, Kobe Domitsu Seasoning Research Institute, now Oliver Sauce, developed a first kontatsu sauce, essentially a Worcestershire sauce which had previously been too liquid and would soak into the dough. This product removed the need to cook the sauce, or at least thicken it with starch. 1950 was a good year for okonomiyaki, seeing both the development of modanyaki, a type of okonomiyaki with first udon and later the thinner Chinese noodles mixed in, developed in Kobe, and the opening of Okonomimachi, the world's first okonomiyaki theme park in Hiroshima, which I didn't know about when I went there and shall subsequently revisit if I ever get the chance. God, I'm poor. Speaking of Hiroshima, quite a few things have been going on since 1945. Well, that came out wrong. Well, the atom bomb, as well as the war effort, had destroyed large portions of the male working age population. Not because the bomb made any difference between men, women and children, and if I ever feel that I've become actually good at this, I will go into quite some detail as to how much of an atrocity the atom bomb was. No, the reason is that many men would commute to the city and back for work, where many women and children stayed in the outskirts of town running the household. It was a different time. The effect was that many families were suddenly, quite apart from all the other tragedy, without the main source of income. In response, many women started selling food. And with okonomiyaki being cheap and inherently flexible in regards to the ingredients, many sold okonomiyaki. Initially these were quite simple, a pancake with some cabbage and other ingredients on it, and then folded in half like a taco. Customers would bring their own plates and wrap the food in newspaper to keep it warm until they were home. Eventually sizes grew larger, making it harder and harder to fold until the modern, open, round shape was reached. Even today there are many minor differences based on locale. Some regions prefer hotter sauce, others sweeter ones. The order of ingredients being added varies, as do cook times and the recipes for the dough. There are okonomiyaki with seafood, meat, even cheese. Some with mayo or without, some even with mustard. The variety is near endless, and even shops right next door to one another can have vastly different tastes. Okonomiyaki are easy to make, fascinating to watch being prepared, they are cheap and most importantly delicious. Give them a try!